This is Life Prepper. I'm doing part 2 on the population decline here. Now, I did the other one. That was the Onion article. That was a 2012 edition again. I said this in here was a 2012 about talking about we need to get rid of 1/3 of the population. This one here is a February the 17th, 2015, talking about the birth decline. And this one here is by, I hope I can get this where you can see it. There you go. Stars for us here, as you can see right here. Here it is. Okay, now, it says in recent weeks, we have been focusing on Greece, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia, and are still burning issues. Okay. So the reason for the population decline, okay? So there's no question but that the population of most European countries will decline in the next generation. And in the cases of Germany and Russia, the decline will be dramatic. In fact, the ethnic global population explosion is imminent. Hear that? Imminent. In virtually all society, from the poorest to the wealthiest. The birth rate among women have been declining. In order to maintain population stability, the birth rate must remain at 2.1 births per woman. So basically what they're saying is, and I'm actually seeing more and more people having one child. They choose to just have one child. A lot of them are career-oriented people. They've chosen to have one child, a lot of times later in life. So that is something that's changed. It's not so much as a necessity. And the population rate is below that. It falls in the advanced industries world, industrial world. Oh, my mouth sometimes just don't want to work right. Sorry about that. The birth rate is already substantially below 2.1 in middle tier countries such as Mexico or Turkey, and the birth rate's falling, but will not reach 2.1 until between 2040 and 2050. In the poorest countries, the birth rate is also falling, but it will take most of the century to reach 2.1. Now, again, I was brought up talking about the fact is that some of the other countries still have large quantities of children because there's really no social security system set up there. A lot of them has never had a public job in their life. All they've ever done is work in the fields or raised or fished or whatever. So they count it on their children to take care of them. Plus they have no birth control. They don't use birth control. They have no birth control those areas. So they keep having, they got a child laying in their arms dying, and they're pregnant with another child. Is what you're seeing in some of the many poor countries. I mean, the situation is bad. The progress is irreversible, but they're telling them, "Come on, let's have kids so we can keep things going." Oh my goodness! The thing is, this is a computer age. More and more stuff's getting computerized, and we're needing less and less people to work. So why are you wanting to keep the birth rate up? They're just wanting to keep people working. They're worried about their businesses. Ain't that something? It says a mature urban society, the economic value of children decline. In fact, children turn from instruments of production into objects of massive consumption. Back in the time, we would hear our grandparents and our great-grandparents would come from huge families of 10 or 12. My great-grandmother had came from a family of 12. Her husband came from a family of 12, my great-grandfather. My grandmother was the oldest of 10 children. So, back then, they had large families because as soon as that child got old enough, that child was either in the fields, helping their parents work in the fields, or they was at home helping their parents. One of those children, there was no such thing as child labor law. A lot of these children was in the factories working as young as 10 years old. Did you know in some of the mines they had young children crawling around in holes that the adults couldn't get in to set explosives and to explore mines and stuff and tunnels? They had children working that young. It's just a difference in it. Just a difference. Because it's talking about family aid would, financial collapse. Also, it's more expensive because of the computer age. Children, I mean, you got video games that's $200. They're wanting the latest games, the latest cell phones, the latest this, the latest that. we're buying all this stuff way above our means to keep us going. So we're living off our credit cards. We're living off of working 2 jobs. So having 1 child is about all most of them can afford, and some of them may have 2. As someone who was raised in a world that saw the population explode as leading to common disasters. Now, they've also talked about the elderly dependent because more people are living. The number of elderly people per 100 working age people, elderly people defined as 65 years or older. Working age is defined as 15 to 64 years old. Now, the thing is, there ain't no such thing as 15 anymore. Used to. You could go to work at 15 and your parents sign it. But it's getting harder and harder to do that nowadays. So, this in here is showing in some of the countries the longer lived and everything, and the darker the color. Unfortunately, this is not in color, so it's not really in color very good. You can see the lighter parts. That's where the less, but the real extremely dark parts is where some of them lives really extremely long. And that in there is a 2020 ratio. This here show a 2000. You can see here that's a 2060. The real dark areas is where the longer people are living. Right here, look here. See, that means they're living longer. That's what they're talking about. That we're going to have people living longer. What we're seeing now, and I'm seeing it every day. More and more people are working. They're not retiring. They're working part-time to subsidize them. They're not retiring anymore like they was. It said the affected population. The real question is whether the decline in population matters. Assume that there is a smooth downward curve of population, with it decreasing by 20%. If the downward curve in gross domestic products matched the downward curve in population, would be unchanged. By this simple measure, the only way there would be a problem is if GDP fell more than population or fell completely out of sync with the population, create negative and possible bubbles that would be stabilized. You know what? They're so dang worried about having their housemaids and their butlers and their chauffeurs and all of that they might have to do it themselves, I guess. One of the key variables migrating the problem and decreasing population will be continued advance in technology to increase productivity. That's a productive. Talking about being productive. Oh, wow. We call this automatic or robots. But growth in individual working products has been occurring in all environments from the beginning of the industrialization and the rate of growth. Ain't that something? Change in relationship between labor and capital. A decline of population will have another and more radical impact. World population was steadily until the middle of the 16th century. The rate of growth increased in about 1750 and moved up steadily until the beginning of the century when it surged. Put another way, being with Europeans, for the past 500 years and more expensive labor, for the first time in 500 years, the situation is reversing itself. Because, bottom line, we're not out there farming like we used to. We're just not out there doing a lot of stuff we did. The economic plant in the place now and created over the next generation will not evaporate. At most, it is underutilized, and that means a decline in return on capital. Put in terms of the money, it means that we'll be in a period where money will be cheap and labor increasingly expensive. You know, I know a lot of people having to work 2 jobs just to survive because the cost of living is unreal. It's just unreal. The thing is, it says this is not the case in all countries. The middle and third tier countries will be experiencing their decline after the advanced countries will have adjusted. A further cause of it in the system in countries such as Russia, where population is declining outside the contents of the capital, in fractures will see per capita GDP decline depending on the price of the oil. Populations are falling even where advanced industrializations is not in place, and in areas where only urbanization and the decline of pre-industrial agriculture are in place, the consequences are severe. There are places with no safety nets, and Russia is one of those. The argument I am making here is that population decline will significantly transform the function of economics, but in advanced industrial world, it will not represent a you know what I mean, collapse crap. Most change will be from the past 500 years. The bankers, finance have held the upper hand, and labor societies having pools of labor to broker will be the key. I have no idea what that business model will look like, but I have no doubt that others will figure it out. You know, it's just it's talk about that in order to save the race. And, you know, America is a great American melting pot. It was saying that eventually white Caucasian people, so that means people from England and Scotland and Ireland, Australia, all these countries, New Zealand, in the United States, who has England and all that, who has Caucasian people, will become the minority, and says that we need to interbreed with other immigrant countries. We need to create children from different cultures in order to survive, is what they're saying. So the thing is, it's going on now. I mean, you're seeing that here, you know, the United States is happening now. You see more and more children every day born from mixed parents. And that's just the way it is. You're seeing a decline in birth rates. Now, like I say, now Africa and stuff, yes, they're right. In African countries, the birth rate is still too high, but the death rate is outrageous. And more of these children are having to raise children themselves of their own brothers and sisters because their parents are dead. They're you know. So that's something you might want to research. So there's just two things here. Like I say, they all contradict each other. This one here talks about the Earth on decline. Like I said, this is part one. This is talking about we need to kill off 1/3 of us by year 2025. And this one here is a concern that if we don't keep having children, that we are not going to survive. We need these extra people to work. But the thing is, you're putting in robots and computers and things in these programs and these factories where one time that one robot is doing the job of 20 people. So what are you complaining for on the decline? Isn't it better? And yes, people are living longer, but more and more of them are working. More and more of them are not retiring at 65. Matter of fact, they've raised the retirement age up. I'm not supposed to retire to 67.8 months, and my body is shot. There isn't a day I'm not hurting. There isn't a day I don't feel the aches and pains because I've worked hard all my life. But I see more and more of them not retiring. I see more and more of them working past the retirement age, a year or two or more. And my son and people his age and people even younger are going to have to work till they're 70 years old. They may even change to 75. So the truth is, you got a lot more older people out there that's going to keep working because they got to. And I'm sorry for y'all who's getting upset that you might not have a chauffeur to drive you around, or that housemaid, or that cook, or whatever you're needing because the population's declining. Well, I'm sorry for you. But the thing is you know what? We need to level off. We got two different scenarios here. Scenarios. In 2012, they're saying got to kill 1/3 off. Then we got the other scenario crying about the decline of the human race, that we need to start breeding with other races, other nationalities and stuff to survive, to start having more children, because we need those children to work. Kiss my grits. People are working past their retirement age because they ain't got no choice in it. People are going to keep working no matter what. And all this technology has got people working a lot less. You don't have the amount of people in the factories like you used to. You don't have mom and pop businesses like you used to. It's all corporate owned stuff. So it's a hang if you do and a hang if you don't. I think the population, it said it would level off to about 10 billion people worldwide. And it might be even more than that. And then it still might not be enough. They still might want to get rid of a bunch of us. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Something to think about. One way says too many. The other one says we're losing people. We need them. Hang if we do and hang if we don't. Well, this is Live Prepper, World of Joan. Check me out on Facebook. Check my Joan C series I'll be doing. I want all you to be safe, be happy. Bless you all.